What is up, my friends and fellow Busybees? Alright, today we're getting into some real talk. I always try to keep it open and honest here on the podcast, and sometimes that's going to mean being upfront and maybe bringing up some harsh realities that you've been trying to distract yourself from or ignore. Not to worry, this is a safe space where you can take the time to reflect, be thoughtful, and inquisitive with yourself and walk through some mental blocks that you may have been experiencing. It's funny because I always have people reach out and let me know that they find the podcast so relatable and say that it feels like it was made for them. And that's because I have been literally right where you are. Everybody has different experiences, obviously, but I've had the same fears that you've had. I've had the same confusion and not knowing what to do next. And I've had to learn similar lessons along the way. That's why it feels so tailored to you, because I have literally been in your shoes, and I don't think people realize quite how recently that was. So, for those of you who are sitting on the cusp of that dabbler and hobbyist stage of the furniture refinisher's success spectrum, head back and listen to episode 45 if you don't know what that is. You may be sitting there and looking at the side hustlers that you see around you or online, and maybe feel a tinge of jealousy or a desire to be there. You would love to take this hobby and passion that you have for furniture painting and refinishing and turn it into that side hustle that will keep you learning and in the workshop and bringing in some substantial extra income for you and your family. But something is holding you back, and maybe you already know what that something is, or maybe you haven't taken the time to explore it much yet. But today, allow me to propose some things that you may be thinking or feeling that might be holding you back from getting there. One thing I see a lot of the time in the people I coach, and I had it myself too, was the fear of failure. You're worried that if you really try to do this and decide you're going to start up that side hustle and pursue it to its fullest, that you will give it your all and it won't be enough. That you'll put yourself out there, announce to your friends and your family and your followers online that you're really going to give it a go. And then, what if you fall short? What if it isn't a success? What if you fail and people notice you failed? This was something that held me back when I first started out too. I had started a separate Instagram account or Instagram page to post about my DIY projects and then eventually my furniture makeovers. And I knew I wanted to grow it before I even decided to make the furniture refinishing a side hustle and business. But I was so stubborn and refused to try and grow it by letting people I actually knew know about it. Because I was nervous and kind of embarrassed to be doing this thing that I didn't even know if I was actually good at yet, showing up on social media and talking to a camera like some fraudulent wannabe influencer, and being vulnerable about this new thing that I was learning and would probably end up making mistakes doing along the way. Does that sound relatable to anyone? So instead of just putting yourself out there and giving it a try, you can instead just stay where you're at, where you're comfortable, and just refinishing for fun and not have anything tied to it. You can play around and do projects and maybe even sell a piece here or there, but not be treating it like a business, not looking to advertise it or grow it or anything like that. And then you can just sit in the fantasy of it, of one day pursuing it and how that would look and how easy it would be and how successful it would be, but you don't actually do it. And you'll keep living in that daydream of it until one day you actually no longer have the choice of whether or not you can pursue it due to some other obligation or responsibility like a busier job or having kids to take care of or parents that require help in your free time. Or you'll have some other restriction like a health issue or a physical restriction that no longer allows you to be able to do refinishing quite as often. So then you'll never actually end up trying to pursue it, and it will be one of those things at the end of your life that you look back on and think, damn, I really wish I had just tried that out and seen what would have happened. All of that will happen unless you actively decide to make the decision to just try. And you know what the most annoying part of sitting in this mindset is? We sit around and we have this negative self-talk telling us that we don't have what it takes, and so we don't pursue this thing we are literally dreaming about and know we would enjoy, and the worst part is we have nobody to blame but ourselves for not doing it. Isn't it so much easier when you have someone else to put the blame on? It's such a handy way to remove that responsibility of the decision from our shoulders, but it's just a matter of us holding ourselves back in this case, and the reality of that is pretty freaking annoying. I know it because I essentially annoyed myself out of it eventually. I've mentioned before that I listen to the Mindset Mentor podcast. Highly recommend for anyone looking to get into the personal development space and find some motivation and tips for approaching life. And he talked in this one episode about a mentor of his who was speaking at a conference or training or something once, and somebody said to him something along the lines of, "You seem pretty full of yourself." And his response was, "Who the fuck else should I be full of?" Think about that for a sec. We're taught that it's such a negative thing to be quote unquote full of ourselves, to believe in ourselves, to think that we are capable and adept and fearless and able to tackle these goals and challenges that we want to pursue. That being full of yourself and your abilities is a bad thing, that it makes you a narcissist or somebody nobody wants to be around. But if we shouldn't be full of ourselves, who the fuck else are we supposed to be full of? The minute I decided to switch that script in my head and say, fuck it, I can do it, and I don't really care what people may think of me when I do it, was the minute I was able to wholeheartedly pursue my side hustle and just give it my best shot and run with it. And spoiler alert, it's been going pretty well, because I essentially told myself to turn all the negative thoughts in my head into positive, aspirational messages that keep me going forward. Highly recommend giving it a try. There's literally nothing bad that can come from it, and it might be just that little boost that you need to get you where you're trying to go. Obviously, easier said than done, but better to put your focus into that than to talking shit about yourself in your own head. Because what we tend to forget when we're sitting in that self-hatred and that self-doubt and those negative and limiting thoughts is that the people around us, the people we are so scared to fail in front of, are actually the people who will be cheering us on the loudest when we decide to throw the shitty thoughts into the fuck it bucket and go for the things that we want. We forget that they love and support us, and that means wanting the best for us. We forget that they will probably notice that we're pushing ourselves past our typical comfort zones and know that we might need a little boost of encouragement to keep us going. We forget that in pursuing our own dreams and goals and aspirations that we may be reminding people of or encourage and motivate people to pursue their own. I was so nervous to start advertising my new Instagram account and eventually my business on my personal accounts in fear of just really throwing that vulnerability and this thing that I was doing into the forefront of people who actually knew me. Like, I made such an intentional effort to not have my new account linked in my contacts or in any way on my social medias to connect it to me personally, because I was like, I don't want it to like show up in people you may know. I don't want people to look on their Instagram list and have it like be linked to their contacts and see that I had another account. Like, I was so paranoid about that shit at the beginning, because I was just like, I just want to figure this out, and then once it's going well and successful, then I can be like, hey, look at this thing that I've been doing. But things are so slow in the beginning that really just having that encouragement of the people around me, the people who actually know me for me too, because I was feeling so fraudulent online for whatever the reason, even though I was showing up authentically as myself, I was kind of showing up as an enhanced version of myself who was like a little bit more cheery or a little bit leaning into the educational piece and all these things that I felt like the people that actually knew me would feel like I was being fake. And so that was a big insecurity I had at first too, but then having those people around me who really know me be like, I love this, I love what you're doing, you're inspiring me to do this thing that I've wanted to do, and just getting that positive feedback was so motivating for me, and it's so much more validating hearing it from people that know you and you know them, rather than just strangers on the internet. So if that's something that's really held you back, I just highly encourage you to lean into it and let people in on your full life, because if you're really trying to intentionally pursue this, it's going to take up a large majority of your life or a large portion of your life. And I mean, we saw it with Hannah Montana, okay? You can't live two separate lives. You gotta live the best of both worlds or something. I don't know. Anyways, okay, moving on. Another thing that you might be thinking if you're sitting in the hobbyist and dabbler stage, or honestly even in the side hustler stage, but just teetering on it because you've kept things super unofficial and off the books and low key, you may be nervous to wholeheartedly pursue having this as a side hustle because you don't have a background in business, and so you have no idea where to even begin with creating and maintaining and growing one. The thought of that makes your heart beat a little faster, makes your palms a little bit sweaty, and gets your mind flying a million miles a minute at the prospect of it RQ. That's real quick for those who don't know. And that is a totally valid concern to have. You have it because you want to do things right. You don't want to miss anything important or fuck anything up or accidentally not know what you're supposed to be doing and then get in trouble. I get that. That is responsible thinking, and I respect that. However, might I remind you that we live in the year 2023, and you have the literal entire existence of knowledge available to you for essentially free in a single click on the internet? If you've been telling yourself that you don't have a business background and so you can't run a business, think again. Grab a book from the library, hire a coach, do some intentional Googling, connect with your local business bureau, read your local tax agency's FAQ documents. The answers are out there, my friends. You are just convincing yourself that it would be too much work to find them, and I am here to bulldoze that assumption from your psyche. Nobody's going to throw it into your lap, but everything you need is out there, and it's very quick and easy to find, so remind yourself of that when your mind tries to cozy up in that little assumption that things would be too hard and so you should just sit stagnant. I came from the world of victimology and social services. I knew how to talk people off the ledge when they wanted to kill themselves, and how to administer first aid after an overdose, and how to untangle messy life situations and help get people on track finding housing and getting replacement IDs and learning how to grocery shop for the first time. But I did not know about business expenses and how to send invoices and what goes into creating a website for your business and what profit margins were and how would you go about getting a business identification number. But you know what I did when I decided I finally wanted to know? I made a list of everything I thought I would need to know, and I started researching from there. And along the way, I discovered other unknowns that I added to the list to research, and eventually all of the information started becoming redundant, and I knew that I probably had the basics down. I connected with some professionals to address any remaining questions I had and validate that everything I had learned was accurate, and ta-da! I was ready to hit the ground running and get my side biz going, and it wasn't that hard, and it didn't take up that much time. Another fear that I also experienced, and I have heard from a few people along the way, is that if you do decide to make your side hustle official and register it as a business and treat it as such, that it will create more pressure. You think that the minute you register for a business number, that all of a sudden there will be big expectations of you and things you'll need to maintain, and all of that pressure will build up and become overwhelming and stressful, and you'll start to hate what you're doing, and you'll lose sleep at night, and it will affect your health, and that will affect your full-time job and your family and your relationships, and then everything will go to shit. But why do you think that will happen? Has anyone ever told you that if you go official, you need to put those expectations on yourself? Chances are, these are just things that your brain is making up and are completely untrue. The reality is that if you decide to lean into your business and get things set up to see where you could take it, any expectations that follow are ones that you're making up in your own head. And since you're making them up in your own head, you can choose what those expectations are, because you are a full-ass grown-up adult with agency and your own free will. It's great. Lean into it. The way that I counteracted this and let myself push past that fear was create parameters for myself that would make the experience enjoyable for me. And I check in on those parameters and expectations often to make sure that I'm still aligned with them. When I first started out, I told myself I never wanted to let things get so busy that I started hating the work that I was doing. So you know what? That allowed me to take a look at a bird's eye view at the things that I say yes to moving forward and put it through that lens or that filter. If I do this, will it make me not enjoy the things that I'm doing? Or looking back on the thing I did say yes to, how did that thing go? Did I enjoy it? Should I say yes if asked to do something like it again? Or was it something that caused more stress or required more time or effort than it was worth? And so then I'll file it under the category of things to set a boundary around next time. The great thing about being your own boss and running your own business is that you get to make all of the decisions. Sometimes that can feel exhausting and annoying because you just want someone else to do it for you. But in these kinds of instances, it means that you get to create and curate the reality that you want. You can create the side hustle or business that you're currently daydreaming about with the same levels of time or stress or effort or whatever else that you've been envisioning it to be like and decide that you think it should have. Another thing that is very much worth noting when we talk about the prospect of getting official and finally actioning that side hustle selling your painted and refinished furniture makeovers is that you are under no obligation to do it forever if you do decide to try it. You could give it a go, give it your best shot, and then if things don't take off the way that you hope that they would after a while, or if you lose interest or excitement with it, guess what? You can wake up the next day and decide not to do it anymore. Crazy, right? Like I said, you're the one making the decisions, calling the shots, and setting the expectations. So although I recommend sticking with it and not expecting immediate success right out the gate, if you no longer love it and truly want to be rid of it, you have that power. Again, you have the free will, which is exactly why I always tell people that if they've been thinking about it and think that they want to try out starting a business or side hustle and selling their pieces, then really what's the harm in trying? On the other hand, if you really do want to try it, but you hold yourself back for one reason or another from taking the chance and trying it out, that could be something that you look back on your life and wonder what may have been. Don't leave yourself wondering, my friend, and take that leap today. You never know what could be waiting for you on the other side. And if you are interested in finally tackling that side hustle, selling your refinished furniture, and want some accountability and someone to guide you through to launching it, you are in luck. If you're listening to this when it's first released, I have an upcoming free Furniture Refinishers Bootcamp, 2 weeks to launch your side hustle that you will not want to miss. Starting June 19th, over the span of 2 weeks, I'll be teaching and providing support for a group of people who are eager and interested in getting that side hustle launched. I will be covering all you need to know about getting things set up and the official channels to look into, getting seen and thinking about ways to market your side hustle, and getting a grip because, like I've discussed today, that mindset piece is so integral to you actioning things and feeling confident as you get into this new, exciting venture. If you would like to join me in the bootcamp, you can click the link in the show notes or head on over to meldiditherself.ca/bootcamp, and I will see you there. And something you may not know about me, I love motivational messages. They get me fired up, so I keep a running list of ones in the Notes app on my phone that are especially catchy or speak to me, and I end every podcast episode with one that I've noted down over the years because I want you to leave your time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way this week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is, fortune favors the bold. And as a side hustler, as a business owner, you really do need to be bold and push yourself past that comfort zone. Do things that you're maybe not necessarily super comfortable doing yet, but forcing yourself to do it for the greater good of pushing that business forward. And then once you do something once, you get that exposure, and you realize that it's not as scary or crazy or difficult like you had built it up in your head. And because it is a little bit intimidating to do those more bold, more creative, more innovative, more out there things, there's just less people doing them. And so that's how you really find the success and getting the reach in your business. Because you're doing the things that other people aren't. So you're setting yourself apart from the rest, and people are going to look to you as someone worth watching because they're seeing you put yourself out there, and people are really receptive to that. Fortune favors the bold, so lean into that boldness as you move forward this week, Busybees. Remind yourself if you feel or hear yourself feeding yourself that negative self-talk and those limiting beliefs. Take a minute, reevaluate, and lean into that boldness because fortune is waiting for you right around the corner. Okay, that's it for now. I hope to see you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the bootcamp to launch your side hustle. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you guys next week.